The text that destroyed my marriage was meant for someone else. I was lying in bed at 2 a.m. when Mike's phone buzzed on the nightstand. He was sound asleep beside me, snoring softly like he did every night. The screen lit up with a message from Emma that made my blood run cold. "Thanks for the extra $2,000 this month, baby. The kids and I couldn't do this without you. Love you forever." My hands were shaking as I stared at those words. Emma was Mike's ex-wife, and those kids she mentioned, they weren't even his. But apparently my husband had been sending her money, a lot of money, and calling her baby while he was at it. The worst part, I had a sinking feeling I knew exactly where that $2,000 had come from. My salary. Let me back up and tell you how I got here, because the story of how I discovered my husband was stealing from me to fund his relationship with another woman is just the beginning. The real story is about what I did next. My name is Sarah, and 3 years ago I thought I'd met the man of my dreams. Mike was different from the guys I'd dated before, more mature, more responsible. He was 28, worked in construction, and had recently gone through a divorce. What impressed me most was how he talked about his ex-wife's kids. He'd known them since they were babies, and even though they weren't biologically his, he still considered himself their father. "Those kids need stability," he told me on our third date, his eyes getting that soft look they always got when he talked about 7-year-old twins Emma and Josh. "Their real dad walked out when they were 2. I might not be their biological father, but I'm the only dad they remember." I fell for him hard. Here was a man who took responsibility seriously, who put children's needs first, who didn't let a divorce turn him bitter. When other women complained about guys who ran from commitment, I'd found one who stayed committed even after his marriage ended. We moved in together after 6 months. Mike was honest about his financial obligations from the start. "I pay child support," he told me. "It's not court-ordered since they're not legally mine, but it's the right thing to do. Emma works part-time at Target and she's struggling." I respected that. Actually, I more than respected it, I admired it. My salary as a marketing manager was significantly higher than his construction wages, so I didn't mind covering more of our living expenses. When we got married 18 months later, combining our finances seemed natural. Mike handled what he called his family obligations, and I took care of our household bills. Looking back, there were red flags I ignored. Mike was always vague when I asked about the exact amount of child support he paid. "It varies," he'd say. "Sometimes they need extra for school supplies or medical bills." When I suggested meeting Emma and the kids, he'd get defensive. "She's not comfortable with that yet," he'd explain. "The divorce was messy and she needs time." I never questioned it because I trusted him completely. When our joint account showed transfers to Emma for things like emergency dental work or school field trips, I figured that's what good stepdads did. Even when those emergency expenses seemed to happen every month, I told myself that kids were expensive. The night I saw that text message, I couldn't fall back asleep. I kept staring at the ceiling, replaying every financial conversation we'd ever had. Emma calling him baby, thanking him for extra money, the heart emoji. This wasn't child support, this was something else entirely. The next morning, Mike left for work like nothing had happened. I waited until I heard his truck pull out of the driveway, then I opened my laptop and logged into our joint bank account. What I found made me physically sick. For the past 2 years, Mike had been transferring between $2,000 and $3,500 to Emma every single month. Not the $400 or $500 I'd imagined for child support thousands. I scrolled through page after page of transfers, each one labeled with innocent-sounding descriptions. School expenses, medical emergency, utilities help, groceries for kids. I did the math 3 times because I couldn't believe the number. Over $60,000 of my money had gone to Emma. $60,000 that should have been going toward our future, toward the house we were supposedly saving for, toward the life we were building together. My hands were shaking as I grabbed my phone and called in sick to work. I needed answers, and I needed them immediately. The first call I made was to the family court in our county. "I need to verify child support payments for Michael Thompson," I told the clerk. After being transferred twice, I got my answer. Mike's official child support obligation was $387 per month. $387, not $3,000. The second call was to my friend Jessica, who worked as a paralegal. "Jess," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "if someone was using joint marital funds to send money to their ex, would that be considered theft?" "Sarah, what's going on?" she asked immediately. I told her everything. When I finished, there was a long silence. "Honey," she said finally, "what you're describing isn't just theft, it's fraud. And if he's having an affair, those text messages are evidence. You need to see my boss immediately." That afternoon, I sat in attorney Patricia Williams's office with printed bank statements spread across her mahogany desk. Patricia was in her 50s, with silver hair and sharp eyes that had seen every kind of divorce case imaginable. "Mrs. Thompson," she said after reviewing my documents, "your husband has stolen over $60,000 from you. The text messages suggest ongoing infidelity, and the systematic nature of these transfers shows clear intent to defraud. We need to act quickly to protect your remaining assets." "What do you mean, protect them?" "If he realizes you've discovered this, he might try to hide money or transfer more assets. We need to document everything and secure what's left." I felt like I was living in a nightmare. The man I'd married, the man I trusted with my heart and my bank account, was a thief. But Patricia's next words made it even worse. "Based on these transfers, I suspect this relationship with Emma never really ended. The frequency and amounts suggest he's been supporting her as if she were his current wife, not his ex-wife." That evening, Mike came home with flowers, daisies, my favorites. "Hey, beautiful," he said, kissing my cheek like he did every night. "How was your day?" I managed to smile and tell him about a fake project at work. Inside, I was screaming. How could he stand there acting loving and normal when he'd been betraying me for years? How could he kiss me with the same mouth that told Emma he loved her? Over the next 2 weeks, I became someone I didn't recognize, a detective investigating my own husband. I installed recovery software on our shared computer and found deleted emails between Mike and Emma going back 3 years. Not only had their relationship never ended, but Emma knew about me from the beginning. In one email from right after our wedding, Emma wrote, "I can't believe she actually married you. Does she know you're still mine?" Mike's response made me want to throw my laptop across the room. She doesn't suspect anything. She's so focused on her career, she barely pays attention to the finances. This is working out perfectly for us. Another email chain revealed that Emma's kids had been coached to call Mike during his work breaks and ask for money. "Tell Daddy Mike that you need new shoes," Emma would text the kids. "Remember to sound sad." The most damaging evidence came from Emma's social media accounts. While I'd been working late and missing dinners to advance my career, Mike had been taking business trips that coincided perfectly with Emma's Facebook posts about romantic weekends and date nights. Photos of her wearing jewelry I'd never seen, at restaurants I'd never been to, with captions like, "My man always knows how to treat me right." My man, my money. But the absolute worst discovery came when I hacked into Mike's email and found messages with his brother Dave. "You really hit the jackpot with Sarah," Dave had written. "Emma gets to live like a housewife while Sarah pays for everything. How long do you think you can keep this up?" Mike's response: "As long as Sarah stays focused on climbing the corporate ladder. She's so busy trying to impress her boss that she never questions where the money goes. Emma and I joke that Sarah is like our personal ATM." They joked about me. My husband and his ex-wife laughed about how naive I was, how easy it was to steal from me, how I was funding their relationship while thinking I was helping children. I printed everything. Every email, every text message, every bank transfer, every social media post. Patricia was right. I needed evidence, and now I had boxes of it. The hardest part was pretending nothing had changed. Mike would come home and complain about his day, and I'd listen sympathetically while mentally calculating how much money he'd probably sent to Emma that week. He'd suggest we postpone buying a house until we have more saved up, and I'd nod while knowing exactly where our savings had gone. One night, as we were watching TV on the couch, Mike's phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "The kids want to know if Daddy Mike can send extra money for the school carnival. They miss you so much." I watched Mike's face soften as he read it. "The kids need money for a school thing," he told me. "Is it okay if I send them a few hundred?" I wanted to scream that they weren't his kids, that Emma was manipulating him, that he was stealing from me. Instead, I smiled and said, "Of course. Those kids are lucky to have you." He transferred $500 that night. $500 that came from my salary, sent to a woman who was sleeping with my husband, for children who'd been taught to manipulate him for money. But I was done being their ATM. Patricia had advised me to wait until I had irrefutable evidence and a solid legal strategy. That moment came 3 weeks after my initial discovery, when I found an email from Emma to Mike discussing their plans for his upcoming birthday. "I can't wait to celebrate with you properly this year," she wrote. "Maybe it's time to tell Sarah the truth. We could finally be together for real." Mike's response was even worse. "I've been thinking the same thing. Sarah's been useful, but I'm tired of sneaking around. After my birthday, I'll figure out how to break it to her gently." They were planning to dump me after bleeding me dry for years. Mike's birthday was in 2 weeks, and they thought they'd use that celebration as their coming-out moment. I had a better idea. Mike's 32nd birthday fell on a Saturday. I told him I wanted to throw him a surprise party, nothing too big, just family and close friends. He seemed genuinely touched by the gesture. "You don't have to do that, babe," he said, wrapping his arms around me. "You work so hard already." "I want to," I insisted. "You only turned 32 once, and you deserve to be celebrated." What I didn't tell him was that Emma and her family would be getting invitations too. I rented the community center at our apartment complex and invited everyone important in Mike's life: his parents, his brother Dave and sister-in-law Kelly, his best friends from work, my parents, and my sister. I also invited Emma's sister Rachel and Emma's mother, Linda, both of whom I'd found on Facebook. In the invitations, I wrote that Mike was eager to introduce them to his wife and that we were excited to finally meet Emma's family. The night before the party, I moved all my important documents and personal belongings to a storage unit. Patricia had prepared divorce papers and a police report for theft, both ready to be filed. I'd already opened a new bank account and transferred my remaining savings to safety. Saturday afternoon, guests started arriving at 3 p.m. Mike looked genuinely happy as friends and family filled the room. He kept thanking me for organizing everything, telling people what a thoughtful wife he had. Emma arrived at 3:30 with the twins and her family. I watched Mike's face go white when he saw her walk in. "What is she doing here?" he whispered to me. "I thought it was time I finally met the children you care so much about," I said sweetly. "And Emma seems lovely from her Facebook photos." Emma looked confused but tried to play along. She introduced herself to me with a bright smile that didn't reach her eyes. "So you're Sarah. Mike talks about you all the time." "I'm sure he does," I replied. "And you must be Emma. I feel like I know you so well already." At 4 p.m., I asked everyone to gather around for a special birthday presentation. I connected my laptop to the large TV screen and pulled up a PowerPoint presentation I'd spent days preparing. "Before we celebrate Mike's birthday," I announced, "I want to share something special with everyone. A look at Mike's incredible generosity over the past 2 years." The first slide showed our joint bank account with $60,347 worth of transfers to Emma highlighted in red. A collective gasp went through the room. "As you can see," I continued, my voice steady despite my racing heart, "Mike has been incredibly generous with Emma and her children. Some might call $60,000 over 2 years excessive for child support, especially for children that aren't biologically his." Mike lunged toward the laptop, but his brother Dave caught his arm. "Let her finish," Dave said quietly. I realized he knew exactly what was coming. The next slide showed the court documentation of Mike's actual child support obligation: $387 per month. This is the official child support amount Mike is legally required to pay, I explained. As you can see, he's been paying almost 10 times that amount, out of our joint marital account, without my knowledge. Mike's mother gasped, "Michael, what is this?" I clicked to the next slide, screenshots of text messages between Mike and Emma, including the one that started it all. "Thanks for the extra $2,000 this month, baby. Love you forever." But the generosity doesn't stop at money, I continued. Mike has also been generous with his time and affection. The next slides showed photos from Emma's social media accounts, dated during Mike's supposed business trips. Photos of them together at restaurants, beaches, and hotels. Photos that clearly showed a romantic relationship that had never ended. Emma started crying. "Sarah, I can explain." "There's nothing to explain, Emma," I interrupted. "The evidence speaks for itself." The final slide showed the email where Mike called me their personal ATM and discussed how easy it was to steal from me. The room was completely silent, except for Emma's sobbing. Mike finally found his voice. "Sarah, please let me explain. It's not what it looks like." "Really?" I asked. "What does it look like to you, Mike? Because to me, it looks like my husband has been stealing from me for 2 years to fund an affair with his ex-wife. It looks like the woman he's been supporting with my money knew about me from the beginning and participated in defrauding me." Mike's father stood up. "Son, is this true?" "Dad, it's complicated." "It's really not," I interrupted. "Mike has been stealing from me. Emma has been helping him. They've been laughing about how naive I am behind my back. The only complicated part is how long it took me to figure it out." I pulled out a manila folder from my purse. "Mike, you're being served with divorce papers. Emma, you'll both be hearing from the police about fraud charges." The room erupted. Mike's mother was crying. Emma's mother was screaming at Emma in Spanish. Mike's friends looked shocked and embarrassed. My parents, who I'd warned ahead of time, sat quietly supportive. Mike tried to approach me, but I stepped back. "Don't," I said firmly. "We're done." "Sarah, please," he begged. "I love you. Emma doesn't mean anything to me." Emma's head snapped up. "What did you just say?" And that's when the most satisfying moment of the entire confrontation happened. Mike and Emma turned on each other. "You told me you were going to leave her," Emma screamed. "You said I was the one you really loved." "I never said that," Mike shot back. "You knew this was just about helping you with the kids." "Helping me? You've been telling me for 3 years that we were going to be together." I watched them destroy each other, while their families looked on in horror. 2 people who had conspired to steal from me were now revealing just how much they'd lied to each other, too. Mike's brother Dave approached me. "Sarah, I owe you an apology. I knew something wasn't right, but I didn't know he was stealing from you. That's inexcusable." "Thank you, Dave," I replied. "I appreciate that." As people started leaving, Emma's mother approached me. "Mrs. Thompson," she said in heavily accented English, "I am so sorry. I did not know my daughter was doing this. This is not how I raised her." "I know," I told her. "Emma made her own choices." The party ended with Mike and Emma screaming at each other in the parking lot while their families tried to separate them. I drove home alone, feeling lighter than I had in months. The next morning, I filed the police report for theft and fraud. Detective Morrison took my statement and reviewed my evidence. "Mrs. Thompson," he said, "this is one of the most well-documented cases of marital fraud I've ever seen. Your husband is looking at serious charges." "What about Emma?" "She participated in the fraud knowingly, so she'll face charges too. The text messages and emails make it clear she knew the money was coming from you without your consent." Over the next few months, my life transformed completely. The divorce proceedings moved quickly since I had clear evidence of Mike's theft and infidelity. Patricia was able to get me a settlement that recovered most of the stolen money, plus half of Mike's construction business. Mike tried everything to avoid consequences. He claimed he'd only been helping Emma out of kindness. He said the affair was Emma's idea. He begged me to drop the criminal charges, promising he'd pay everything back. I refused. Actions have consequences, and Mike needed to learn that. Emma's situation fell apart quickly. Without Mike's financial support, she couldn't afford her apartment and had to move in with her mother. She was charged with conspiracy to commit fraud and faced significant fines. Her part-time job at Target fired her when the charges became public. The twins, who I genuinely felt sorry for, went to stay with their biological father's parents, while Emma dealt with her legal issues. It turned out their real father had been trying to reconnect with them for years, but Emma had been using Mike's support as an excuse to keep them away from their actual family. Mike's construction company fired him when the fraud charges became public. He moved back in with his parents and took a job doing manual labor for minimum wage. His brother Dave told me later that Mike spent most of his time complaining about how I'd overreacted and ruined his life. I didn't feel sorry for him. 6 months after Mike's birthday party, I was living in my own apartment, had received a promotion at work, and was dating a wonderful man named James who believed in financial transparency. James showed me his bank statements on our third date and gave me his accountant's contact information without me asking. "I don't ever want you to wonder where your money is going if we get serious," he told me. "Financial trust is everything in a relationship." The difference was like night and day. I also started a blog about financial manipulation in relationships. You'd be amazed how many women wrote to me with similar stories. Husbands sending money to ex-wives, boyfriends using joint accounts for personal expenses, partners hiding debt or gambling problems. My story went viral when I posted about Mike's birthday party confrontation. Women from around the world shared their own experiences with financial betrayal. Many of them said my story gave them the courage to investigate their own suspicions. I learned that Mike hadn't just done this to me. Through my blog, 3 other women reached out with similar experiences. Mike had a pattern of targeting successful women, gaining their trust, and then systematically stealing from them to support his relationship with Emma. Detective Morrison was able to use this information to file additional charges. Mike eventually pled guilty to multiple counts of fraud and theft. He was sentenced to 18 months in prison and ordered to pay restitution to all his victims. Emma also pled guilty and received probation, community service, and significant fines. She was required to pay back her portion of the stolen money, which meant she'd be working multiple jobs for years to come. The last I heard, Mike was working in a warehouse after his release from prison, living in a studio apartment, and having his wages garnished to pay restitution. Emma was working 2 jobs and still living with her mother. They hadn't spoken since the day they turned on each other at his birthday party. A year after everything happened, I ran into Mike's mother at the grocery store. She approached me nervously. "Sarah," she said, "I want you to know how sorry I am about what Michael did. What he stole from you was unforgivable." "Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. I appreciate that." "He asks about you sometimes," she continued. "He says he's sorry and that he wants to make things right." I considered this for a moment. Mrs. Thompson, Mike had 2 years to make things right. He chose to steal from me instead. I hope he's learned something from all this, but that's not my concern anymore. She nodded sadly. "You're a good person, Sarah. You deserved so much better." "I know," I replied, "and now I have it." Today, 2 years after that devastating text message, I'm engaged to James. We're buying a house together, with completely transparent finances and a prenuptial agreement that protects both of us. I'm a director at my marketing firm, I've paid off all my debt, and I've rebuilt my savings. More importantly, I've learned to trust my instincts. When something feels wrong, it usually is. When someone is evasive about money, there's probably a reason. When your partner discourages you from meeting important people in their life, they're likely hiding something. I also learned that love isn't enough. Mike probably did love me in his own selfish way, but he loved Emma more, and he loved easy money most of all. Real love requires honesty, respect, and transparency. It requires putting your partner's well-being above your own convenience. The $60,000 Mike stole was expensive tuition, But I graduated with a PhD in never being anyone's fool again. If you're reading this and something in your relationship feels off, trust that feeling. Check your bank accounts. Ask direct questions. Demand transparency. You deserve a partner who treats you as an equal, not as a funding source for their other priorities. And if you discover betrayal like I did, document everything, get legal help, and don't let anyone convince you to stay quiet to keep the peace. Peace isn't worth your dignity, your financial security, or your future. Sometimes the best thing someone can do for you is show you exactly who they are. Mike showed me he was a thief and a liar. Emma showed me she had no shame or integrity. But most importantly, I showed myself that I was stronger, smarter, and more resilient than I'd ever imagined. I'm not grateful for what they did to me, but I'm grateful for who I became because of it. And that woman, she's never letting anyone steal from her again.